Welcome to the Renaissance, a time not just of paintings and sculptures, but also when power itself got a makeover. States got bigger and political philosophy went from pray and obey to strategize and betray, but in a classy way. Today, we will cover 4 key questions to understand Renaissance politics and their impact. Starting with, what were the major developments in politics during the Renaissance? Who were the key figures and what were their contributions? How did Renaissance thinking challenge or build upon previous political ideas? And what are the long-term effects of these changes on modern society? Let's get into this. First up, politics in the Renaissance. The medieval era's patchwork feudalism, fragmented lords, and church dominance start to unravel. Here are the big shifts. Alright, picture this. It's the late Middle Ages. Europe's basically a giant pyramid scheme. Lords, vassals, peasants, and one king sitting on top like, yeah, this totally works. Then boom, trade explodes, money flows, and monarchs suddenly start to have actual cash to spend. No more begging nobles for soldiers. They can hire actual professional armies. With money and muscle, kings start cutting out the feudal middlemen. But it's not just kings. Peasants are not tied down to a singular lord.
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's not even a scheme per se. I have to go make a call.
After the Black Death, many found better working conditions and stronger wages elsewhere. These are the seeds of modern-day capitalism. Now, governments begin to evolve, start to build bureaucracies and collect taxes, and hire smart, qualified professionals from the merchant class instead of their inbred cousins. Basically, it's the birth of government jobs.
Mr. Speaker.
Not to say there wasn't corruption or favoritism to the already rich and powerful, that perhaps still hasn't changed even today. But it was clear society was evolving, and many individuals were making iconic names for themselves through patronage, but more on that later. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Renaissance, Italy looks like a political sandbox, not unified, but rather made up of independent city-states, all gaining wealth through banking and trade. These states compete for dominance, and while this competition led to investments in the arts and the goal to showcase state pride, it also resulted in competing interests, shifting alliances, and war. Oh, and the church? Yeah, it starts losing its political monopoly. During the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church dominated politics, and kings were expected to obey the Pope. By the Renaissance, rulers like Henry VIII began to reject church control. Henry even established the Church of England. Heresy! The Reformation spread across Europe, weakening the Pope's power and leading to conflict among many leaders over many years. Yet, politics shifted from church authority to stronger, independent monarchs. The main takeaway here is that monarchs and other political leaders became more independent, more wealthy, smarter, and thus more powerful. Now the characters enter. Perhaps the most famous in Renaissance politics, Niccolo Machiavelli, the poster child. He's famous for The Prince, which gave blunt advice. Rulers should focus on power, pragmatism, and sometimes ruthlessness. He helped break the link between politics and moral virtue. For example, the famous question, would you rather be loved or feared, stems from his work. And his answer? A quote from The Prince itself, it is better to be feared than loved if you can't be both.
Is it better to be feared or respected? And I say, is it too much to ask for both?
Now, next up, the moneybags of the Renaissance, the Medici family, especially Lorenzo de' Medici. The Medici family in Florence weren't just bankers, they were power brokers, patrons of art, kingmakers, and popes. Their wealth and influence shaped Florentine and broader Italian politics. They helped build the careers of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. And we can't forget about monarchs. With their growing power and state influence, separate from the church, they became all the more influential. In Spain, Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon united their kingdoms, led armies, and centralized royal authority, even funding Columbus's voyage in 1492. Meanwhile, in England, Henry VIII shattered ties with Rome to form the Church of England, putting religion under royal command. His daughter, Mary I, remembered as Bloody Mary, tried to reverse that, burning Protestants to restore Catholic rule. And towering above them all was Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, fighting to preserve his vast empire to defend Catholicism during the Reformation. Together, they marked the shift from medieval feudalism to modern state, where kings, not popes, held the true power. Think of medieval political thought like a rigid rulebook. Politics and religion were mostly intertwined. Kings ruled by divine right, virtues were moral, and loyalty to religion or God was central. The Renaissance poked holes in that. Renaissance thinkers began to treat politics as having its own logic, somewhat independent of religious morality. Machiavelli is often credited with decisively divorcing politics from ethics. But that's not to say he was alone.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
Thinkers start treating politics like a science. They go, what if we studied power rationally, like Plato and Aristotle did? The Renaissance reboots ancient political ideas, republicanism, civic virtue, mixed government, but with an Italian flair and fancier hats. Meanwhile, Machiavelli doubles down with wild quotes like politics has no relation to morals. It is better to be feared than loved. And one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. Forget about good and evil. Do what works. This idea of political realism or pragmatism, rather than the idealistic king should always be just and holy, rulers now were advised to do what works, sometimes bending morality for the survival and stability of the nation. Instead of viewing politics as purely ordained by God or tradition, thinkers and rulers started emphasizing human choice, planning, negotiation, strategy, and sometimes even manipulation of public opinion, such as propaganda. As states became more interconnected, diplomacy became a technical art. The printing press meant treaties, manifestos, and political texts spread more quickly, reconfiguring how states interact. Fast forward to today, a lot of what we take for granted in modern politics has roots, or at least echoes, in the Renaissance. Let's list some legacies. Now, rulers govern defined territories, collect taxes, and, theoretically, respect borders. Machiavelli's realism never went away. Every time a leader makes a controversial decision for stability or national interest, that's straight up Renaissance logic. When countries justify drone strikes, trade-offs in diplomacy, or election strategies with "it's just politics," they're quoting the prince without even knowing it. Then there's secular political science. Politics as a rational system, not divine will. Every political science program, even policy debate, owes its root to the Renaissance idea that power can be studied like a science. The reason leaders today rely on data analysts instead of priests, that's Renaissance innovation. Meritocracy and bureaucracy, also Renaissance born. Rulers started hiring smart advisors instead of nobles. Today, entire governments from Canada's civil service to the US Department of State run on that same logic. Competence over bloodline. Though, let's be honest, family connections haven't totally disappeared. Limits on religious authority? Huge legacy. The Renaissance separation of politics from the church evolved into modern secular democracy. But when we debate prayer in schools, abortion rights, or religion in lawmaking, we are still wrestling with the same tension that began when Henry VIII told the Pope, "Nah, I got this." And finally, political critique and accountability. Renaissance historians started asking not what rulers should do, but what they actually did. That's the backbone of modern journalism, investigative reporting, and political satire. Every time late night hosts roast a politician or reporters fact check leaders, that's Renaissance realism with Wi-Fi. So yeah, the Renaissance might be over, but its politics never left. We just swapped crowns for suits and royal decrees for viral tweets. To wrap it all up, In the Renaissance, politics went through a serious glow-up. Monarchs expanded, city-states experimented, thinkers questioned divine mandates, and power games got a philosophical upgrade. Figures like Machiavelli forced us to think, is ruling about being moral or being effective? And that question still haunts modern politics. From our modern states, rigid bureaucracies, and secular governments, to the ongoing debates about moral leadership versus pragmatic governance, we still live in the political DNA of the Renaissance.